Hello, this is David Costner with the RetireWise podcast. I'm with Retirement Living Associates, and today I'm joined by David Segmiller with JMT Architecture. David is a legend in this industry and has designed some incredible communities and spaces within communities all across the United States, and we're happy to have him here at the Leading Age North Carolina show to talk a little bit about trends that are impacting senior living across the country, the demographic wave that is upon us with the baby boom. And one thing we want to talk about right now is sort of the affordability crisis that exists, or the missing middle product in the country for senior living. Senior living is expensive. It is. It takes a lot of money to plan and buy land and build buildings and provide services with a lot that is very staff intensive.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult product, if you will, to bring to the marketplace to serve the needs of a very large and growing population of seniors. But there are lots of moves now to try to address that, and I want to talk to you because I'm sure you've been involved in some of those in studies of how can we make a product that provides the quality of life that folks are looking for, but is able to be provided to them at a lower cost.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a huge problem in our industry, is that we've got these products that serve different slices of the market. But there's a huge part of that demographic, the baby boomers, if you will, that can't afford a life plan community, want to stay at home, want to stay in their house, which is that's a very valid thing, right? But then how do they get care when they need it? How do they age in place, for lack of a better term? And then where do they go when they need something like assisted living, or they have a memory care issue, or they have eventually a nursing issue, or something like that. What we haven't really developed very well is affordable senior housing. When I say affordable, I mean not necessarily low income housing. We have that, right? We have HUD level housing that we've done that. Charitable organizations like Catholic Charities and the Jewish Charities kind of offshoot that does that. So those things exist, but to qualify for those, you have to be really indigent, and they're beautiful and they're really nice, and other foundations give money to make them better, and that's great. But there's a giant middle of the market that's really underserved, that doesn't have anywhere to go, and it's not so much the building cost in my mind. It's the staff cost.
Right.
It's the overhead of having that building. There's actually a building in Raleigh that I can't remember the name of it, but when I was at ULI with a bunch of people, there were some of the guys who were the investors in that project, and they would tell me how great it was, and I said, well, I got to go see this, right? So I went. And it's basically a senior apartment building. People pay rent and they live there. What made it was the lady who ran the place made sure that all the local restaurants came in and provided a meal once every week, right? And so there was this sort of ad hoc meal plan that was really high end because it was being served by restaurants. There was always a lot of activity. She would plan things. She just took it upon. She was like den mother, right? To the whole building. And I said, well, this is a great concept, but how do you repeat it? Because you can't
have her.
You got to find another one of her.
That's right.
Somehow, it's not the building you need to institutionalize. You need to figure out what she does and make it a job.
Yeah.
And then you have to find a whole bunch of them.
That's right.
And so, the product kind of exists, but they're few and far between,
right.
and they need. People need stimulation and they need ways to interact with each other. And if you don't have that sort of catalyst, it's just an apartment.
Right. I mean, they're communities after all, right? And that's why most people, and I mean, if you're not in an immediate need of care. You're in a need
Yeah.
for socialization.
Right.
And so they have to start with that. But as you say, dining
Right.
is a very labor intensive and expensive thing to provide. So I think one of the ways that I've seen that the industry is trying to address this is through what they call unbundled services, right?
Sure.
Where you allow people to choose the amount of the dining program that they want, although that reduces the efficiency of the dining program
Well,
that's
it makes
being
it
provided.
more expensive to have it.
It's right.
Right?
So,
Do you put it like, because they didn't, at that particular community, they didn't have a meal plan. It was kind of ad hoc.
Right.
Everything came in prepared. There's no commercial kitchen.
right.
Right? There's not a giant investment in serving food. There's just a catering function.
Right. Warming and serving.
Literally just serving. I
Yeah.
mean, they bring, it's like throwing a party at your house where you hire
Yeah.
a caterer and they bring everything in chafing dishes.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, and it worked really well. But it was hard. I couldn't figure. I'm like, I don't know how we replicate this.
Right.
Like, because it's so. It depends on that person.
Right.
And the love and the kind of the love they have for everybody. Right.
Right.
And but so there are. It's just trying to figure out how to do a model like that and make it work. Right.
Right.
And
you've got the facilities part of it, and you've got the programmatic part of it.
It's not a building, it's an operational
That's
model,
right.
right? And
That's right.
that's the people, they'll say to me, we need to figure out an affordable thing, and I'm like, I can figure out the building, right? I can figure out the materials we can make it out of and all those kinds of things.
Or if it's a conversion of an existing space,
right.
just repurposed.
But it's the operations model that's key, right? And that's from you, that's from you guys.
And there are lots of experiments going on around the country, folks trying to do that. I don't know that anyone would say they've figured out the magic formula except that woman and how to replicate that.
Well, and the other thing that I've had a lot of conversations about is not just affordable senior housing, it's also workforce housing.
Right.
Because, the biggest thing that makes any of these communities work is staff.
Right.
And competition for staff is intense, right? And a lot of them are right down the street from a hospital, right? And the hospital pays better, right?
Right.
For food service staff, for everything. So what's your better mousetrap to get the staff to come to you, and being able to provide a housing for a lot of those people, it would help, in getting those people. Plus, it could be part of the mission of the nonprofit to create that. So that's one of the other issues that I've had conversations about is workforce housing and how do we do that.
I've seen some schematics of where the seniors are on the first floor and there's workforce housing component above it. Interesting. Again, don't know.
And even daycare, stuff like that, and adult daycare for respite for that couple we were talking about, where one person has Alzheimer's and the other doesn't.
So it's an interesting thing. So that respite care or adult daycare can be sort of an add-on that existing communities, a way of extending their services into the community, serving more people, but without having to buy property and develop more units. So that's one thing that's going on. We also have these programs called CCRC at Home that are developing around the country as well, where you can stay in your home, you can be given care to a certain level, and then when you need more significant care, come into the often underutilized healthcare components of continuing care communities.
It's funny, everybody, but when I talk to the groups that have those kind of programs, the amount of people that actually end up coming in is pretty small.
That's right.
You'd think it would be bigger, but people stay at home as long as possible, and then they just make that move at the into hospice or into the nursing home, and it's a short
and
stay.
it really is about affordability too, because it is more expensive to do that, on a per hour basis.
Most of them thought it would be a entree to get people into independent living, but it doesn't really seem to happen.
No, if it does anything, it does help a little into the assisted and skilled levels or memory care, but not so much into assisted living. So What else would you say? What's an innovative model or something else that you may have seen out there in a project you're working on that may be trying to address some of this?
Interesting. Well, we've, Southminster that I worked on for a long time. We were talking. We replaced their healthcare center with a much more market current assisted and new healthcare, and that's been real successful. And then they converted apartments, but they're kind of top of the market, and that was a place where you had a lot of dated product from the 80s, right? That cottages that really couldn't be renovated another time, right? And we replaced those with, for lack of a better term, hybrid apartments, which are 2 exposures, so they feel like a cottage, and they have parking under the building. We're doing a lot of that kind of exploration because they're landlocked. There's not. They have to go buy more land to do other stuff.
Right. So how do you better utilize the campus that you already have?
Right, and every time you do something and make a move, like with the healthcare center, well, that doesn't produce any income, right? Because you already have, unless you add beds, which is really hard.
Right.
You really have the same number of beds. You just gave it a better environment. Well, you got to pay for that. So you got to go back and build 80 new apartments or 100 new apartments or whatever it takes to offset that cost. And so it increases the population. Then it puts pressure back on the dining and all that. Do we need to expand that? It's a big puzzle.
It's a
right?
big puzzle.
But those are the kinds of places that see the opportunity now to say, okay, we have the top of the market taken care of. What do we do to serve our staff better and to serve another market, a middle market? And it's a challenge.
So we talked briefly about a project that you're involved with outside of North Carolina. That's a active adult repositioning project. So we haven't talked much about active adult. It's sort of the entry phase into the sort of full continuum of senior living services.
Well, kind of. I don't know that a lot of them actually go to any continuum. I mean, most. I had this unique opportunity last week to do a repositioning of an active adult community. I hadn't had much opportunity to do that because they don't really see themselves like the not-for-profits that you and I are familiar with. But and we're in the midst of that. But it's it's a different ownership model. It's everybody owns their house. But they can see that their competition is kind of outstripping them. They're a much older community, and they're trying to figure out what to do next. Right.
And when they opened, they were getting 65 to 72-year-olds moving in,
for the most part.
And now the community's filled with 80-year-olds or 85-year-olds.
You'd be amazed. Yeah, they had people up to over 100.
Right.
And they had actually lowered the entry age to 45, and I was like, I don't know if anybody's moving in here at 45, but it could be a married couple where somebody's 45. But it was interesting because the demographics were a big spread, but the 70 plus group was really big and the 80 plus group was really big. So it was right, that sweet spot of 70 to 90 was where everybody was.
Right. And so the whole concept of active adult may
there was
not
a
really
lot
fit them
there was a
anymore.
lot of aging in place. People were pretty active, but they have when you age out of there, where do you go? Right. So it's like the Del Webb communities. It's like these communities. People put an assisted living right outside the door. Right. But then you've really left the community. Right.
Right.
And so our question to them was, well, should we build you an AL on the they have big chunks of land where they park RVs and stuff like that. Well, I mean, is that the best use of that land, or could we do something else with it? And so we're asking those questions. Should it be an apartment building where you could go to?
Well, interestingly, we recently had a conversation, very preliminary conversation with an active adult developer. It's not something we've ever done or been involved with, but they were actually very interested in conceiving about making their community sort of sustainable for the longer term by
Right.
including within the master plan a space for assisted or memory care within the community. Obviously, that wouldn't be marketing that, but
No.
not in the brochures and out there, but when they're in private conversations with the people that are looking to buy homes in their community, they can say, we have planned
We have
for the
something
future,
for you.
right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and again, I think that's another example we've said previously about the entire industry is not just greedy people looking to make a buck. It's trying to solve problems, and people do want to stay at home. Some people need to stay at home for financial reasons.
And even if you're in a community, you'd like to stay in the community. You
Right.
put that we just moved my mom from an independent living apartment in a CCRC to an assisted living unit over the holidays this year, and it was traumatic for her. I mean, she's giving up some of her freedom to be in the AL building, but it's actually been good for her because she was getting more isolated in independent living because she's getting physically frail. She's all there, otherwise she's just physically having some issues. And she said to me, I won't know anybody. Oh my goodness, we walked in, she knew everybody because they had come from independent living.
I was going to say,
right?
yeah.
The place was full of friends that she hadn't seen in a while.
That's right.
And so it's actually worked out pretty well.
And that's the beauty of a continuum on the same campus, right?
Right.
Is that when you do have to make that move, it may feel,
Right.
difficult as it is for anybody having a transition. But when you get there, these were my friends before
These are my friends
that
before.
I haven't seen
Yeah,
for a while.
that's what she went through, and it was pretty fun to watch because all of a sudden it's not a new group of friends, it's like the group she had before, just in a different building.
Right.
And they're all frailer now, and they've all got rollators and all that stuff, and it's fine.
Right.
And it's kept her having pretty much the same quality of life.
Right.
Even though she's frailer now than she was 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Yeah, well, good. Well, thank you, David.
Sure.
Appreciate this conversation, and thank you for what you're doing to help solve all the challenges that we face. But for those that are listening, again, ask questions. Everybody's situation is different. Ask the communities how they're going to adapt as things develop over the future, and then you have to make a gut decision about what's right for you or for your loved one. But the more information you have, the better off it'll be. Thanks again for watching Retire Wise, and you can find us on YouTube. Just search Retire Wise.